All right, let's continue our conversation. We were talking about terminating decimals, like in this case, then, right? Before we get to ordering decimals, how do we know if 63 over 72 can be a terminating decimal? So when we simplify that, you get 7 over 8, which then turns out to be, in this case, 7 over 2 cubed. So since there's only 2's in the denominator as prime factors, it will terminate. So when we think about fractions, right, as decimals, right, we think about order, like they're numbers. So where would they fit? How do they compare? So a common misconception sometimes is students see numbers like this, right, and think they're different. And they look different. The numerators and denominators are different. But when we simplify them to a decimal, they turn out to be equivalent. And so these trailing zeros, or we have here, when we think about like a decimal number here, we see two decimals are equal only if one can be made to look identical to the other by removing or adding trailing zeros. Those zeros add no place value when we think about it, right? So 14 over 10 is the same as 140 over 1,000. Again, it takes some time for students to understand and grasp that abstract kind of idea. But it's something as a future teacher you need to be aware of and start to think deeply about, right? But again, students easily get confused by that. Now, if we're going to order decimals, we need to kind of imagine where would they fall on a number line. So looking at 3.5 and 0.9, we see a whole number, so we know 3.5 is greater than 0.9. Now that was kind of straightforward, but sometimes students see the 9 and think it's bigger. But again, knowing the place value is important. 35.06, 35.06, those are equal. I have some trailing zeros. I can remove them, right? And then we could see that then they're equivalent. Sorry, they're equal. 89 to 0.09, again, another common one where students can get confused. 89 over 100 is bigger than 98 over 1,000, 98 thousandths. You can also start from the first number and then compare place values. The 8 is bigger than 0, so it's going to be a bigger number. Again, so a lot of different ways to think about it. It takes some time where students need to see it, right? Understand place value. And then this last one, the same idea. There's an 8, a 0, 894. Again, 894 looks bigger than 893, but because I have a value here, it's bigger. Again, take some time, but we see that would be bigger. That's a smaller number. So again, we would look at digits from left to right, just like whole numbers, right? But again, keep in mind, we could use a hundreds chart, a number line, turn them into fractions if that is helpful for students. So keep all that in mind as we're helping students understand the order of fractions. Let's see if we want to continue. Let's continue a little bit here. Another thing we want to do with decimals and fractions, right, is use it for mental math and estimation. Sometimes we use rounding techniques. So this goes back to stuff we've learned in previous chapters, compatible numbers, right? Using compensation, using the different properties. So you can see some of the math here that I've started to work on already, right? I would reorder those two, put those together. So you get 5. So this becomes 6 plus 3.2 or 9.2, right? 0.5 times 4, half of 4. So that becomes 2 times 6.7. So that's 12. That's 13.4. So it's really about rewriting these, right? Being compatible. And then using compensation, right? Using numbers that are compatible. So I break the 8.5 into 8 and half, right? So you can imagine that is 6 and 8 plus 0.5. So then we use distributive property. So you get 48 plus 3. So that's 51. Here we're adding. So I turn this add a 0.02 to that, subtract a 0.02, makes life easier. Now I know the answer is 5.74. 7.32 minus 4.94. What can we do? I'm going to add 0.06 here, 0.06 here, right? Equals sums method. The difference will remain the same. Now I can subtract. I can find the difference between those two is 2.38. So that's all ways to think about at the beginning. Think about mental math and estimation. In the next video, we'll go ahead and looking at decimals and fractions to do some computations.